fun to get started with. Welcome everybody. Bridget's recording, good. I think we got everything taken care of. Well, welcome to the State of Allerton. That was our Victor Krause concert that we had earlier this summer, June, I think it was the 20th. It was the summer solstice June cruise concert. And so we had that playing in the background there to get things kicked off. We're going to do some etiquette here, some Zoom etiquette. I've done a lot of Zoom meetings and they're still really, really uncomfortable from the get-go. And so what we'll do is we're going to be muting people as needed. If you have questions, there's a chat button down, should be a chat button down in the bottom. Go ahead and ask that question via chat. If you cannot figure out the chat button and you have a question, feel free to interrupt. It's fine, not a big deal. This is somewhat informal, although Bridget and I have practiced quite a few times to get this as best we can, considering the virtual content. I want to thank you all for being here. I recognize that this doesn't come with the normal perk of not only getting to see me in person, but also getting to be at Allerton while we do this. But I'm very appreciative of those of you that are taking this into view. And I think actually we've probably got more people than we would have had it been on site. So I'm thankful that everybody came on board. Another couple thank yous. I wanted to thank our great staff here at Allerton. Some of you are on this Zoom call tonight, but this has been a very stressful, difficult couple months, as you can imagine. And the staff out here, as always, does great work, keeps me on my toes constantly, which is good. And then has a really good deliverable product here that we have at Allerton. I want to thank our board. Some of you are on. Thank you for your guidance and your advice throughout not only this past couple months, but over the last year. Our great volunteers, and then our amazing donors as well. All right, to get things kicked off tonight, I'm going to figure out how to advance slides. Hang on just a second. Bridget, I might need you. Oh, there we go. All right. We'd like to begin tonight by recognizing and acknowledging that we are on the land of the Peoria, Kaskaskia, Piankashaw, Wea, Miami, Mascoutin, Odawa, Sauk, Meskwaki, Kickapoo, Potawatomi, Ojibwe, and Chickasaw nations. These lands were the traditional territory of these native nations prior to their forced removal. These lands continue to carry the stories of these nations and their struggles for survival and identity. As a land-grant institution, the University of Illinois has a particular responsibility to acknowledge the peoples of these lands, as well as the histories of dispossessions, and have allowed for the growth of this institution for the past 150 years. We are also obligated to reflect on and actively address these histories and the role that the university has played in shaping them. This acknowledgement and centering of Native peoples is a start as we move forward with the next 150 years. Bridget, there we go. All right. So I assume most of you can understand that as we get going with the State of Allerton and we reflect on fiscal year 2020, which occurred between July 1st of last year and June 30 of this year, it's difficult to talk about it without talking about COVID. Bridget and I thought it would be good to go ahead and review kind of a COVID timeline as it results, or as it's reflected in the facility of Allerton Park and Retreat Center. March 16th, which just so happened I was in Michigan at the time, enjoying sort of enjoying spring break with my family. I got a call and a text and an email from my boss on campus asking that we please close Allerton Park and Retreat Center to all public activity. This wasn't an unknown. We'd actually sort of planned for this as the last contingency, but we were aware that this could be the case. And so we went ahead and closed the park, the facilities, and the adjoining trails to the public. We've worked over the next couple weeks to develop a safety plan that was approved by the university. And on March 27th, we went ahead and reopened the Southside trails for hiking. All facilities and main park remain closed at that time. Safely reopening for our staff and our visitors was our #1 priority. After the south side of the park opened on March 27th, most staff continued to work from home. We had about 2 staff members on site a day in the beginning, and we slowly came out of that with a few more every other day. But most staff worked from home during that time. It was a time to work remotely. On May 4th, we went ahead and opened the north side of the park for the rest of the staff, and then the staff continued to work remotely and work on safety plans for bringing the staff back to work as well. On July 6th, well, during that time, regular natural areas trail work and garden work continued. We noticed more people than normal out enjoying the park at their leisure, and we were happy to see the resurgence of the visitors here at the park. On July 6th, we welcomed volunteers back. Our staff, as well as volunteers, I think we're excited about that time frame. And then looking into the future here a little bit, on July 28th, we'll go ahead and reopen some of the guest rooms. That announcement is coming soon, that we'll have some of our hotel operations back up and running on July 28th. It's a limited number of rooms. There's a lot of safety and compliance that we still need to do, so masks will be required when you're inside buildings. But that we want to go ahead and we think we can service the public in a safe manner by opening that. August 1st, we'll open for private rentals, so for weddings and conferences with a lot of contingency involved. Some of those contingencies include new cleaning and safety protocols, mask requirements, and groups less than 50 people. We want to thank the university and the community for their support over this trying times, but particularly thankful to the university for their guidance. We anticipate additional changes occurring and will continue to react, adapt, and adjust as needed. Some of that reaction and adaptation comes in forms of experiences that you can have here at the park. I'm particularly interested to point out that I'm proud of our staff for pivoting when it comes to the virtual experiences that we've been able to afford the general public in our community over these trying times. If you haven't noticed, we've been able to keep the public connected and engaged through virtual tours and hikes, virtual concerts like the Victor Krause concert we were listening to in the beginning there, virtual workshops that have had different, they've been in cooking, gardening, art, photography, Allerton Kids Corner to keep our next generation included and engaged, the Creek Cam, which is particularly interesting and popular, a new bird club with a new bird club podcast, and we've also increased the amount of e-newsletter that comes out. There'll be more to come as the season progresses, and also we're building on this foundation of virtual content. It's something that we think we can progress and move forward as the years go on. It's not a flash in the pan. It's a way to expand our overall reach to a community that's larger than just East Central Illinois. And so we're investing in more equipment with the help of the university to increase quality and broaden the platforms where we can find new content and where it's available. And then we want to know from you, what do you want to see in virtual content? And so you'll likely be getting a survey at some point asking you those exact questions. Going forward, if the situation in Illinois continues to improve, you'll begin to see smaller outdoor activities with lots of safety restrictions, but we could possibly see getting back into doing smaller tours, smaller hikes, masks and things like that will be required. But we see that if the situation continues to improve. So we can't talk about COVID-19 and its impacts on our facility and our unit without talking about its long-term budget impacts. Well, its short-term budget impacts and what those budget impacts will mean for us long-term. It's estimated that from March to the end of June of this year, we've lost close to $750,000 in revenue. That equates to about 50 rentals canceled from March through June 30. Some of those cancellations, some of those events weren't canceled, but they were postponed until a further date. And so we feel good about being able to postpone events and fill calendars in the future. But even as we move forward, hosting some of our smaller events, we have a feeling that most fall and winter rentals that haven't already canceled have a chance of either canceling or postponing due to those reduced numbers that we can service here. Luckily for us, we've been reserve budgeting, and we had a great fiscal year 20 prior to March. It was one of our best fiscal years as far as revenue production is concerned prior to that COVID pandemic happening in March. We've also been building endowments for the past 10 years. We will continue to lean on those endowments moving forward. And if this is the first time that you are in a meeting with me, this will be not the last time, hopefully, that you'll be in a meeting with me, and definitely not the last time you'll hear me say that endowments are the way to a sustainable future at Allerton Park. And so we will continue to push the importance of endowments that we're reaping the rewards from currently. We've also worked hard to save money wherever we can. That's literally even in the means of shutting off everything that we can to not pay the bills. So that includes satellite TV, air conditioning. I just literally got my air conditioning turned on 2 weeks ago here in the mansion, and even water heaters being shut off. Looking toward the future of budget impacts, that revenue will stick around for a while, the revenue reduction. So we're going to have to budget for fiscal year 21 for a deficit in some of our accounts. I went to the university and I asked them to realize that the formula that we had created here at Allerton is a lasting, is something that we can make go for generations to come, but I need a little help. And so I said, is it possible that we can maintain staff, can maintain forward momentum, but budget for a deficit in certain accounts? And if we promise to get that deficit paid off in the next 2 fiscal years, the university said that was fine. In fact, they'll give us an extra fiscal year. So we have 3 fiscal years to get that deficit paid off. And so the university understands that in this trying time, there needs to be some leniency involved. And so we will continue to be resourceful with everything that Allerton has, and we'll try to limit the deficit that we create, but ultimately we have to be knowledgeable enough to know that staffing is very important, and keeping people employed is also very important. We've had to cancel some projects, but thanks to donor support, we've been able to move forward on some, and those will be covered a little bit later on. All right, thank you, Bridget. Fiscal year 20 revenue. So if we look at the pie chart that Jan Gill has prepared for us, and the numbers resulting, or that the pie chart are a reflection of, you can see that the endowment income there, that's the farm ground that Robert Allerton left that we traded for, that's still owned by the university and maintained by the university, but that we get reflections in the university pool, is up. We see an increase in weddings and conferences this year. It was a great year in our revenue. We've seen an increase in gifts this year. And we also see that revenue portfolio is diversifying as we speak. Our special events are up. The state and institutional funds are up compared to last year, primarily because the university has supported bigger projects over the last couple of years. And so our reliable state funds are continuing to decrease. but that institutional support of deferred maintenance projects and other donor-related projects will continue to increase as we continue to collaborate with the university on things. All right. Expenditures are about where you want to see them. As the director of Allerton, this is pretty typical for what we see. Salaries and benefits make up the biggest portion of this pie because that's what we spend a lot of our money on. Allerton is a collection of people. I believe that we built a very compact, sturdy team of individuals that we continue to keep employed here. And so services and supplies are about where I'd expect to see them. And so in total, I think we spend the money we have very conservatively, and I'm happy with where we're at with our expenditures. So revenue's down, expenditures are sort of staying the same. We're cutting as much as we can, but it becomes to wonder where we can move forward. And so oftentimes, as a leader does, I hope as leaders do, within units and facilities, they often look back to their mission and vision statement for inspiration. And so I turn toward our vision statement and realize that the vision statement is we inspire to be a facility that inspires the community to utilize and value nature, history, and the arts through accessible and sustainable programming, research, and facilities. And so over the last 2 months, maybe more, I've been dissecting strategy after strategy. I've been looking at pre-COVID where we were and post-COVID where we are now. I've been looking at numbers and trying to get my boss as many numbers as he possibly can to say, you know, we missed out on this project because post-COVID we're not in the same spot we were pre-COVID. And so we'll go over 2 strategies tonight. One strategy we'll start out with here is what I consider the front burner strategy. And the front burner strategy is simply defined as a condition of being an active consideration and development. And so it's there, it's available, it's on the front burner, and we're gonna look at it. We'll also review long-term strategy, which I hope most of you remember last year if you attended this. We put together some strategy for fiscal year 20 and fiscal year 21. We are still in reactionary mode with some of our COVID-related strategies, and so we'll get into that a little bit later. But let's talk about that front burner strategy. So we'll want to reevaluate what can be done and how we can move that forward. Right now, we think there are 3 main ways that we can adapt, adjust, and move forward with this front burner strategy. We can work towards collaboration. Collaboration's always been important to Allerton, but right now we feel like many organizations are in a similar position that we are. So they're looking outward for help. A great example is that I'll go back to that Victor Krause concert and collaborating with WILL radio on that concert. WILL was able to give us a voice that had been somewhat taken away from us because people aren't able to come here for our events. So they were looking for content and we were looking for a voice. And so that was a great collaboration between the two. We'll look to expand on that collaboration efforts with U of I departments in our community. And we think we can continue to have an impact and adjust that collaboration as we move forward. Number 2, within that front burner strategy are projects. So we're going to be adjusting and delaying projects as needed based on funding. And so some of those projects were based on funding that we were going to create with weddings and conferences. And so we'll go ahead and push those away, but we'll bring in donor projects and start being able to move up donor projects as needed. We'll go into projects here in a few minutes. And then one of the most important pieces that we'll be talking about over the course of this year and many years to come is Allerton's response to the continued societal impacts of racism and violence. We at Allerton are realizing that as an organization and staff, we are flawed, but we are listening and learning from those impacted by racial inequality and injustice. We are committed to education and to action. We stand in solidarity with the Black Lives Matter movement and the fight against racism, violence, and historic and systemic oppression in the Black community. Allerton has always been a community resource, but now more than ever, we must commit also to being an ally to those underserved and oppressed in our community. It'll take work and it may be uncomfortable, but we are committed to change and we are committed to educating ourselves on how to better provide support. At Allerton, we believe in diversity, inclusion, and access. We've created a committee and taken the first steps in forming this most diverse committee, as diverse as possible here at Allerton, who will be tasked with creating a more diverse, inclusive, and accessible organization. We look forward to sharing those goals and action items with you as they come about. We'll also work hard to continue the conversation within the Diversity and Inclusion Committee. We'll continue sharing educational information and resources for the public on this very important issue. All right, those are the 3 front burner strategy. And before I get into long-term strategy that we talked about over the last couple of years, we're going to take a little bit of a break here and talk about our fundraising campaign and update. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Bridget Frericks to take over for a little bit. Bridget?
All right. Thanks, Derek. I think Derek just needed a break to get some water, so I agreed to step in. Hopefully most of you are familiar with our All In for Allerton fundraising campaign. So you can see there the goal or kind of overarching theme of this campaign is to grow endowments, to add diverse programming, and to create accessible facilities. So we are, this campaign is in conjunction with the Universities with Illinois campaign. So the silent phase started July 1st, 2014. And then the university publicly announced the campaign in October of 2017. We decided to wait until our annual fundraiser the following May. So May of 2018, you can see the photo there. We had our announcement of our $8 million goal for this campaign and had some fireworks and gathered at Allerton. And we're looking forward to doing that again someday soon, celebrating the end, hopefully. So the end of the campaign will be June 30th, 2020. So we've got a couple more years. We're at 4.6 million. So just over 57% of the way to our $8 million goal. So if we look a little bit closer now at, oh, hold on. I can't advance this. Derek, are you able to advance my screen?
I am not able to advance your screen. Sorry, Bridget.
Huh.
Oh, there you go.
There. Oh, yeah, there we go. Sorry. Okay. We knew something like that was going to happen. Had to be when I had the control. All right. So looking at FY20, as of the beginning of June, so this isn't quite fiscal year end, but we are at about 1.2 million for fundraising over the past fiscal year. So if you do some quick math, you can see, you know, if we stay around that same amount, we won't quite hit that $8 million goal in the next 2 years by the time the campaign ends. We'll have to increase that, you know, if we average about 1.7 for the next 2 years, then, you know, we'll be well on our way to $8 million into creating those diverse experiences and sustainable facilities and growing endowments. So it's a bit daunting, I guess, especially in this kind of COVID world where our fundraising has changed a bit. I had traveled to see some donors over the past year, the first part of the year, to Texas, New Jersey, Florida. Derek had gone out to California. We were kind of expanding our outreach and efforts, as well as, of course, locally and regionally. So inviting people out to the park and having good conversations about where we're heading in the future and you know, opportunities for investment in Allerton. So those things still exist. I think that if you've been out to the park, if you've paid attention, even during this time, as Derek's explained, you know, we've been able to move forward in a different way. And many of the same opportunities, you know, for giving still exist. And so we're looking at, yeah, different ways to continue to engage with people who might be interested in learning about those opportunities and investing in Allerton. It's just a little bit different in this time, as most things are. So we're adapting and very optimistic. I always say that the staff at Allerton makes my job super easy because they do such great work, and you can come out and see the result of giving. So, you know, you can invest in Allerton and then you turn around and see the beautiful gardens, the accessible natural areas and trails, and the programming, the events. So I have no doubt that they will continue to showcase what a great facility and place that we have. And then in turn, hopefully, you know, the public will be interested in continuing to increase those efforts and invest in Allerton. So a couple highlights from this past year, we did create an accessible Allerton fund. So people can donate specifically to help convert this, you know, it's a 100-year-old facility that used to be a private estate. So there's a lot of places that are not accessible. And so we created a fund specifically for that to raise money for that initiative, along with some specific funds for different areas. So we have our Friends of Allerton annual fund, but we know that people are passionate about different areas of Allerton. And so we wanted to make sure that there was the opportunity to give to specific areas, whether it be the natural areas, the gardens, or the mansion. And so we've created those opportunities where people can kind of give where they're most compelled. And so you can see there a picture of the newly restored koi pond. So using money from Friends of Allerton, we were able to restore that pond, and you can actually see the koi fish when you come out. It's really beautiful. A couple other highlights from this past year, gazebo restoration. Every year we usually use some Friends of Allerton money to help maintain and clean the statues. So we have a lot of artwork and sculptures to take care of. And so that's just a couple highlights there, again, that hopefully people can see once they make an investment or make a gift, then, you know, they can come out and enjoy the benefits. A couple other highlights are forestry mulcher that we were able to rent now for the second year, thanks to donor support. So you can see the top picture there is invasive privet. So that was like 10, 12 feet tall, just kind of taking over the woods near the Food Dog Garden. And we were able to come in, our natural areas managers, what would have taken them, I think they estimated like 15 years if they would have just worked on invasive species removal, they were able to do in 2 months, over 2 years. We rented a forestry mulcher. And so you can see there in the bottom, native bluebells coming back just the spring after that work. So very encouraging and impactful projects. And then on the right there is a picture of our annual garden. So this past year, we had a donor sadly pass away, and her life insurance policy was donated to Allerton. So I worked with her husband and her children to find a meaningful project. And so that her life insurance policy went to pay for all of our annuals. So the whole annual planting in all of the gardens was funded by that. So we have a lot more, I guess, to cover, but I get to turn it back over to Derek to talk about a few of these bigger projects that we were able to complete this past year, and then some that have begun. So
great. Thanks, Bridget. Good work. Bridget and staff did a great job this year of raising donor dollars for these really important projects. And so some of the ones that we were able to celebrate this year, one of the ones we were able to celebrate this year is the Triangle Garden restoration. And that was from a ground up project. And so we took out all the plant material that was in that garden and went ahead and replanted it in the same exact way. The only real difference was we used boxwood instead of privet because privet's such an invasive species. And so it's a great garden. It's really taking off currently, and it will continue to grow over the years. But that Dana Brim and Larry Bauman, who donated this garden in memory of Dana's brother Barry, we had their dedication ceremony in September. It was a wonderful day, a little hot, but outside with lots of good friends. And next, Bridget, sorry. There we go. Next, we'll do the Brickwall Garden. So in June of 2020, so that was this last month, we finished up the Brickwall Garden. Deborah and Michael Westjohn, with the help of Christy Ruskowski and some university support, created accessible walkways in the entire perimeter of the Brickwall Garden. We planted 1,300 new plants, 25 yards of mulch, and we have an endowment for long-term care and maintenance for that garden. That garden was dedicated to all who love and labor for Allerton by Deborah and Michael Westjohn. And so that should be everyone on this call. So if you haven't been able to go out and look at the garden dedicated in your memory, you should make a trip. It's well worth it. It's a beautiful garden. It's always been a beautiful garden, and now it's more accessible and lovely to walk around. The dedication event for that is TBD, and there's a lot of TBDs in my notes today. All right, so let's go inside now. Mansion restoration. Deborah and Michael Westjohn also are in love with the butternut room, which you can see there on the left-hand side. They provided the gift to refurbish and endow that room, and so we got some new furnishings in there and a long-term endowment to help maintain and care for that very unique portion of Robert's mansion. The marble hallway, which you'll see on the right, and if you've ever walked in the mansion, it's the first, it's your entrance way. We are able to use some Allerton Annual Fund money to help pay for that furnishings in that hallway. It's a really great spot to come into now, and it's a great entrance for all of our customers who are coming into the mansion. Continuing on with the mansion restoration, we also received a generous gift from Deborah and Dave Ratche that will help refurbish and endow Robert's room, which is room 5 here in the mansion. And you'll see new furniture coming in for that room, along with some new wall coverings, and to make that space much more comfortable and available to people who are renting that room for hotel and overnights. We're thankful to the Ratche family. Another room that in the mansion, another couple rooms, John Gregg's room, which is room 4. It's the room down the hallway from Robert's. This was actually given in, some gifts were given in memory of Jane Gregg Showalter. Jane lived out in New Jersey, I think. New Jersey, right, Bridget? And she recently passed away, and her friends and family gave to refurnishing of John Gregg's room, which you see there on the left. So we'll be able to get some new furniture, more comfortable furniture in that room. Jane was John Gregg's niece, and so Bridget and I were able to meet with her a couple times. Bridget actually went out and visited with her, and she was a wonderful person and had some really great memories of John Gregg. The library, which is the room I'm sitting in. I don't know which picture is better, Bridget. Probably the other one, because I'm not in it. That one was actually, we received a gift from Steve and Susan Zumdahl, and they made a pledge and a partial gift in their estate to help refurbish, help with some of the IT equipment in the library, and create a long-term endowment for the library space. And so we're really excited to get going on that one as well. And you'll see that happening over the next couple fiscal years. Some of these projects haven't been announced to the public yet, and so since you're on the State of Allerton Address, you are on the ground floor of some of these announcements. And so if it seems like, well, I didn't know about that, you probably didn't quite know about that yet. But congratulations, you're one of the first to know about some of these. Speaking of long-term strategy and impact here at Allerton, as most of you know, we're trying to renovate the visitor center space and make it more public. And one of the pivot points in the visitor center complex was the historic ice house. We would like to take that, as most of you know, if you've been involved with Allerton at all, we were aiming to take that facility and turn it into an in-residence facility. And we're happy to report that Dana Brim and Larry Bauman provided funding for the funding for the rebuilding of that, the refurbishing and renovation of that space, and an endowment for the long-term use of that facility. And then along with that in-residence facility, we were able to pair a program to go along with it. And Joan and Peter Hood were gracious enough to endow for the programming of our first ever in-residence program. And this will allow for future university and community collaborations, public education, and engagement. And the Allerton in-residence program and facility will make a cultural impact on East Central Illinois region, bringing together nature, art, and history to inspire creative exploration and focused experiences while contributing to our goals of community engagement through education and research. Restoring Robert Allerton's original ice house to serve as lodging for artists and naturalists will recreate the intimate experience Mr. Allerton provided his guests. During his life, Robert hosted many artists at his home, allowing them to be inspired by the estate's tranquility, energy, and natural beauty that occurs throughout the year. Great thinkers, creators, and artists all found inspiration at Allerton during their residence, and we hope with this new facility and program, they'll continue to do so. We're excited to get all of those things kicked off, and you'll look to a very productive fiscal year 21 with both those facility updates and then in addition that additional programming. So we're pretty excited about that and very thankful for the donors for helping us move forward with our strategy. Another, right behind that ice house facility, we have a couple solar arrays that were built back in 2014. We were able to leverage a gift from a donor who had an IRA required minimum distribution, or an RMD. And he had to make a investment, or he had to make a withdrawal from that IRA. And so he donated $25,000, which we were then able to leverage with the Student Sustainability Committee on campus, who gifted us $55,000. And so we'll be putting up another 21 kilowatt solar array. This is a good thing for Allerton. We pay all of our own utility bills. Some of you have been involved with the university over different points in your life. At Allerton, we pay everything. So every dime that we produce with these solar arrays, we're able to keep and then turn around and make more investments into Allerton and its momentum moving forward. On a side note, we're co-hosting a solar power hour on June 30th for anyone in Champaign or Piatt County interested in going solar. But I bet like Macon County would probably be okay. I mean, like they could learn something if they came to it, right, Bridget? She's nodding. So, I mean, Macon's cool. But anyway, if you're interested in that, it's on June 30th and we're co-hosting it. I think Bridget's going to speak at that. So I'm pretty excited to go. All right. So as you can imagine, last year we put together this, and some of you took it home. You can find it on our website. It's pretty nice. We decided to look at the University of Illinois' strategic plan for 2024. And we made some commitments to moving forward with our own strategy based on their strategic initiatives. We mirrored their plan, but ultimately we refocused on what Allerton could do to help out the university. I told you at the beginning of the night that we have two strategies moving forward: the front burner strategy, which is focused on things that we can change currently, and then more long-term thinking, which is this all in for Allerton 2024. It's difficult for, I think, any leader to look too far into the future at this time. I've spent too many days pestered by the thought of what is going to happen and trying to get that crystal ball to show me when COVID is going to be over, when revenue can start again, you know, what 2021 looks like. And it's just a very difficult time to think accurately and strategically without a lot of changes coming up. So what we've decided to do instead is to simply review that all in for 2024 strategic plan goals. And then ultimately, once we stop being so reactionary to what COVID is doing to our organization and our revenue model, we will reassess where we're at for fiscal year 22 and beyond, and try and get a clearer picture of where that's going. And so our first goal was to improve existing infrastructure and build relationships with community and university entities to support creative activities and promote Allerton as a resource to attract residents and visitors. And so much of that we're in the middle of doing or have completed for fiscal year 20. Some of the things had to be delayed. For example, to finish the main parking lot improvements, we were going to depend upon revenue produced by the mansion, and we just don't have that right now. And so some of those had to be delayed. One thing that we are currently moving forward with is the planning the planning of a new and engaging visitor center area. And so the Ice House was number one within our visitor center experience, our visitor center complex experience. Number two is getting a new visitor center to get it out of the Café where it currently is and put it into the Regency building. We had some great conversations with community members. We had some great staff conversations. And so that plan is ongoing. We're looking to continue to move that forward. But unfortunately, that project is based in donor. It would have to be a donor project. And so right now we don't feel comfortable moving the actual build out of the visitor center forward, but we do have some ideas on how to continue to plan for that once we get there. Other pieces that we were able to accomplish or that we're going to continue to do. A lot of this says ongoing because we're not, most of these aren't one and done situations, strategies. They're things that create a new guiding principle for us. And so collaboration is talked about creating partnerships and re-engaging with community members. And so we were able to create new partnerships with Monticello community, the Monticello community, which is so important for us out here. We created a relationship with Milliken down in Decatur, Craner Art Museum, WILL, Landscape Architecture, ACES, Engineering, and the list goes on and on and on. And that list is going to continue to be important as we focus in on that front burner strategy. The collaboration with the university is ongoing and can be very efficient for us as we move forward. That goal one, as we look forward to fiscal year 21, you'll see a lot of delayed, some TBD, like composting for the Greenhouse Cafe. We wanted to offer composting. Well, the Greenhouse Cafe is not quite open now, so that's been delayed a little bit. The visitor center, as we talked about, is dependent upon a donor. And so we were hoping to get some things done this year using some revenue money and a combination of some gift funds that we had, but that had to be delayed, the build out of that visitor center. We wanted to create a U of I engagement coordinator position. That also is being delayed. I don't feel it's a good idea to bring on new staff at this time, just because of all we're still in reaction mode, and the university has actually put a hiring freeze. But even without that hiring freeze, it's not quite a time to build staff. And so we're not going to take that completely off the table for strategy, but we will probably push it down the road to fiscal year 22 or 23. All right. Goal number 2, we were going to, engage with the public to plan and gain support for facility and programming additions. These additions would be adaptable and educational and experiential learning opportunities for a communal environment. And so one thing that we were going to do in fiscal year 20 that will be pushed into fiscal year 21 because it's going to be ongoing is we're going to continue to plan for the educational facilities. So the build out of some of the visitor center complex, which we'll get to in just a second. But also we're going to continue to plan and develop children and family spaces at Allerton. And so some of you saw our children's garden plan that we had developed over the last couple of years. We're really excited about that. It's going to take a little bit of a push internally to get some of the infrastructure down before we can start that garden. But moving forward, that's another great donor project that we'll be, Bridget and I will be looking to continue on with. All right, and then a continued, sorry, my slides are goofed up. Okay, and I have to find the right slide, I'm sorry. Transform. This is where my printer goofed up. Oh yeah, here we are. Okay, so this one is where we'll talk about the expansion of the visitor center complex area, I think. Is that right, Bridget? Yeah. Okay, so some of you know that we've got a visitor center complex that has some great older buildings in it, some really great older buildings. And we've been talking about modifying those buildings for use. And before we can really build out those buildings, we need to understand the concept that the buildings will have. The appearance is not such a big deal, but what's being held inside those buildings will be a big deal. So over the next fiscal year, we're going to probably have great public debate with what the public wants to see in those buildings. And once we understand what is going to be happening in those buildings, we can take a bigger picture look at how we plan out the build of those facilities, to either create more programming space, to create more artist space. Maybe it's just more public indoor space is what's wanted and needed at Allerton. So as we continue to transform our outdoor or our facilities, we'll have to continue to look inward on what those facilities are being used for. And so be ready for us to come back to you and ask you some questions like that. This is where things get funny, Bridget. This is my goofy slide. Okay. Goal number 3, we want to create an accessible and engaging facility that offers diverse opportunities to transform the way the public views and values the natural world and emerging environmental initiatives. And so we want to look for things like leveraging our experience in the natural areas management. So I always tell the story, maybe I don't always tell the story, but I've told the story before about how I want to personally take on the golf course industry and reassign the appearance of beauty. I want Allerton's roadsides to be what beauty is to the everyday man, not the manicured golf course appearance, although some people prefer that. I prefer the natural wildness. So I think we can leverage our experience in the natural areas and its management to create beauty in sort of that natural chaos. We're going to continue to develop and implement a facility wayfinding signage, which sounds sort of boring, but it's very important. And if you've been out here lately, we have phase 1 done of that. And so you'll actually see some of our new wayfinding signage up, which makes it easier to get where you need to be going, which is really important and necessary. All right. And then for fiscal year 21, we want to celebrate Allerton as much as possible. And so we wanted to add a community event to the calendar, which seems like an easy thing to do, except when you live in a COVID era, and then that's a little bit more difficult. And so we're looking at ways maybe that we could do that virtually, or maybe plan for later in fiscal year 21 or early 22 to add some of those events. Again, the natural areas and its visible impacts on everyday life. Elmer's Corner, which is on the corner of Allerton Road and Old Levee Road on the south side as you're coming in. There's a big corner. We'd like to take that and revitalize it and make it a little bit nicer as a turn-in, but keep it natural and keep that kind of that natural chaos as it seems to add beauty to that corner. But to do that, you got to get rid of some of the invasive species that are occurring in there. All right. All right. Goal number 4, we want to invest in additional revenue producing endeavors or entrepreneurial staff. Our unique facilities continue to improve buildings and grounds, programming, and communication efforts. And so we were going to talk about one of these in particular, which is the modified. I have a modified down here. In my goal, I talk about my entrepreneurial staff. I've got a great staff, and if I don't brag on them enough, I should brag on them more. I have a wonderful staff, and they're always looking to do things outside of their job descriptions. And in COVID era, oh boy, have they ever got into it. I've got Freya, who is our lead sales coordinator. She's running around with her camera, taking front porch pictures of some of our friends for them. I've got Pete, arranging irises and a vase that we're able to drop off for some of our friends who are might be stuck at home. And I've got a program coordinator who had all of her camps canceled for the summer, and Mindy Brand. and volunteers couldn't come in for a long time. And so she turned to me and asked, you know, what can I do to help? And for a long time, we wanted to create an annual fund coordinator position, which would help Bridget in her efforts to raise money, but ultimately look at $25,000 donations and less. And so it was a great fit for Mindy. And so she's picked up some of the annual fund coordinator position while keeping a high level view on some of the programming and volunteers as we move forward. And I think that's a great sign of, again, all of our staff coming together in a really weird time to do what needs to be done at Allerton. And I couldn't be prouder of them than I am. Some of those are delayed. It's fine, Bridget, but some of those are delayed. It's just the way it is. I mean, like we were going to get a new equipment attendant this year to help out in the gardens, and it's just not in the cards. You know, some things have to be sacrificed for future good, but it doesn't mean it'll never happen. So that's the good news. All right. Okay. So then again, ongoing looking at fiscal year 21. What kind of things can we do, and what kind of things you know are we going to have to delay? We actually have the Koi Pond Terrace is going to get an accessible walk where we'll use that aggregate cement. The guys are prepping that now for FNS's crews to come in and concrete, hopefully late summer, early fall. We're going to continue to improve mansion lodging to improve the quality so that we can you know, utilize what we have currently to create additional resources for strategic advancement. Okay. Bridget, I'm sorry. All right, so in conclusion, as you can tell, there's still a lot of reaction to COVID happening at Allerton. As the director, I take it full on the chin that I didn't have this completely figured out from day one, but there's a lot of moving parts and pieces. And so our goal as a staff is to create a welcoming and safe environment for all of you and for all of your friends and for the community that Allerton serves. And one of my main goals as director, especially through these COVID times, is to keep my staff safe, motivated, and employed. And I've been very clear with my direct report on campus that employed part is really important. We've built a staff and an organization that has the right formula for success, and we've proven it. And the last thing I want to do is create a lot of disruption for a problem that we don't exactly know when the end of it is going to be. But when the end of it comes, my staff is hungry, they're available, and they want to be doing as much as possible to getting Allerton where we all see it to be. So I think that in review, that keep those front burner strategy top of mind. We'll continue to work long-term strategic on those goals, but ultimately, you know, we'll stay the course. And I think that's what I want everybody to take home tonight, or maybe you already are home. Take away with you tonight. We're going to stay the course. We've done great things. The community has done great things. The last thing we want to do is to get too reactive and too anxious over this whole thing. I tell my staff all the time, we won't be defined by COVID-19. We'll be defined by the actions prior and post. COVID-19 is a blip. We can move past it, but we need to stay the course and stay true to that formula that we've developed. So that's in conclusion. As we wrap up, I thought I'd hit on a few things. I've got a lot of questions about the Greenhouse Cafe. The Greenhouse Cafe still exists. As you can imagine, it's a difficult place to be in a very tight, small building that isn't open right now. And so Sam Kuhn, who runs the Greenhouse Cafe, hopes to be open this fall. We're going to keep working with her and keep, you know, it's very important to us to have that cafe. But we also understand that it's a lot like us. It's a lot of reaction at this point. And so she's got to think about her strategy as well. But the Greenhouse Cafe is still there. It's just not open due to COVID at this time. We also, research, oh my gosh, research is still going on at Allerton. We couldn't be happier. You know, I might be a little bit, I think Allerton is the premier natural areas spot in Illinois, not East Central Illinois, in Illinois. We've got some of the most beautiful natural areas in all of Illinois, and the research that goes on there is amazing. And so we continue to collaborate with the university to continue that research and that portion of the indenture. And they're doing some great things in research here at the park. So this year, 2020, is the 50th year of Allerton being designated as a national natural landmark. And so that's a big deal. There's no other, as far as I know, I could be wrong, but I've researched it as best I could. There's no other university facility or unit that is deemed a national natural landmark. And there's actually very few of them in Illinois. And so we're proud of that designation. And we had some great celebratory things we were planning on doing. And some of that has slipped just because it's more difficult to gather these days. All right. Then, hang on 1 second here. Okay, and then, in 2021, which will be next calendar year, we're going to be celebrating 75 years since Robert Allerton's generous donation to the University of Illinois. We're so fortunate to be able to hear many stories about your history with Allerton and what it's meant to you over the years. Some of you have been coming here since the first year it has been donated. And others of you have taken some great pictures and some fantastic pants with a big shaggy white dog right out in front of the mansion. And others of us have been riding those goldfish in the sunken garden for however long. And if you look at that bottom right-hand corner, you see a baby picture of, well, not baby, but of Bridget right there, right? Yep, right there. So it's meant a lot to all of us. And as we celebrate that 75 years of memories with you, we're going to be gathering some of your stories and pictures and hopefully coming together in person to celebrate those 75 years of Allerton Park being part of the University of Illinois. Okay, with that, we've got a lot of staff on the call today. And so I'm always asked, how can I help Allerton? And I always give the same 4 responses. Advocate for us, participate in our events and states of Allerton and educate yourself on where we're at. You can volunteer. We've got a great volunteer program, some really dedicated, lovely volunteers who do great things for the park, and you can donate. And so as we move forward, you know, we ask that you stay in touch, sign up for that e-newsletter Maisha and Bridget put out once every couple weeks. And you can do that on our website, allerton.illinois.edu. You can follow us on our social media platforms. We've got a great social media presence. And you could always just reach out to me if you don't want to come in and see me, which I can understand these days, probably always, but most likely these days. Feel free to reach out to me on an email, give me a call. And if you'd like to talk about anything I reviewed here, or maybe I missed something in particular, please feel free to reach out. And with that, I'm going to open it up to questions. Here, we've got some over here in the chat bar. Terry Iverson asks, latest on replacing the Norway spruce trees. Terry, the last time I checked, we were 12, I think 12 spruce trees short of 141, which are 146. I've been saying too many numbers tonight, I can't remember, but somewhere in the hundreds of the trees that needed to be replaced. And so we had a very generous donation from the McDonald, from Warden Diana McDonald, and they gave us they moved into the city and can't plant as many trees, and so they gave us a wonderful donation to get a bunch of those done. And so we're super pumped to get those in the ground. I think we're going to do 30 next spring, but Peter is on this call, so he's probably shaking his head no, but I think it'll be around 20 to 30, and we'll continue to replace as they fall. We'd like to do big swaths not individuals so that the other trees fall on them. And so we'll continue to replace those, but we're almost to our goal of replacing all of those over the next few years. I'd like to get all of them replaced probably in the next 10 years, well, 8 or 9 now. But yeah, Peter says they will plant 30 next spring. So from Peter's mouth, there it goes. So yeah, and right, and also with that Norway spruce, or the Norway spruce trees. Thank you all, Terry and Judy. You guys donated for those trees, and anybody else who's donated for those trees. It's a great opportunity to kind of reinstate a classic Allerton. You know, a very iconic drive-in, and so we're really pumped to get that done. That was actually Jim Ayers. I went to a meeting with Jim Ayers the first couple of weeks I had this job, and it wasn't even this job, it was like 2 jobs ago, but whatever it was. And he asked me, you know, what are you going to do with that? And that was probably 10 years ago. And I said, you know, we need a strategy before we just start replacing trees. And anyway, Jim got me thinking about, you know, long-term effects of planning, and how, you know, you can get tripped up if you just go after something short-term. But yeah, we're really close to getting those.
So Derek, perhaps you or Bridget can give us the cost of each tree for people to donate.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, $225, and that gets a 4 to 6 foot tree. And we take a little bit of that and we put it into a long-term maintenance fund. And so we keep it there in case we need to replace them. So far, we planted 40, and not a single one, knock on wood, has we've lost. So we've got a great replacement streak going, or no replacement streak going. But yeah, $225, and you get to be part of that kind of historic, iconic evergreen alley next year. Thanks for bringing that up, Terry. Mindy, Ashley, Peter, Bridget. Can't keep track of all the people on this. We've got a lot of Allerton staff, so feel free to ask questions about anything on the spectrum. Thank you for all the, it was a difficult presentation. I will not lie that leading an organization through this time is very difficult. I fall back on my board, I fall back on the community, I fall back on my great staff. I've been severely lucky to be part of Allerton through this time. I won't say that every day I wake up and I feel like everything's gonna be great, but I will tell you, every time I come to the park and I see my other staff members and I get to interact with them, and I see the community. By the way, we miss all of you. I hope you all know that. Every single one of you. The park's open. I get to see people from time to time, but it's not like it used to be. And I really miss all of you. I do not like being out here by myself, even though the park is highly visited. It's just a weird time to be around. You know, there's no concerts, and anyway, summer's supposed to be full of people and full of interaction, and Bridget and I were just talking about how much we just miss everybody. So soon. Peter says he works really hard to water all those trees and every other plant. I agree. He's always got that hose going. Any of our staff want to speak? Mindy, Peter, Ashley? I don't know who else is here. Jordan, Bridget, whoever's here.
Well, I would just like to say hi and see how nice it is to be able to put some faces with some names. I'm labeled as Lily Brand. That's my daughter's name. I'm not sure how she did that, but I'm Mindy. So some of you I've emailed with, and it's nice to see a few faces and just say hello and echo that it is kind of lonely out at the park without our supporters, and that it'll be a wonderful day whenever we all get to come back out after this is all over and enjoy the park together again.
Monica says she's thankful for us for opening the park when everything else was closed. It was actually life-saving. Yeah, that was oh man, talk about hectic. I probably shouldn't have left town when I did, but you know, I left town and went to Michigan, and then I was up there through the thick of it, through closing, and I just felt like I had abandoned everybody. But it was rough, and we were really thankful to get things back open and going. Georgia asks, where does the original funds from the farmland gift go to support? The original funds from that go to support, 85% of it goes to support park operations. So natural areas, the woodland, the formal gardens, and everything it takes to maintain those spaces. Up to 15% of that can be used towards retreat center operations. Truthfully, we haven't had to do that much over the past few years. We'll put a little bit here and there towards special projects. In fact, the retreat center has carried park operations for a few years when the stock market tanked after 08. We didn't really feel that effect in that fund until like 2012, and the retreat center and its weddings and conferences really carried some of the park operations, the salaries and benefits of those staff. This year we'll probably do up to 15%. I don't know if we'll do the full 15% to help fund some of the retreat center staff, but I will tell you the retreat center staff has been working, I mean, you know, keep this between us, but they've been doing great things, weeding and watering gardens, helping out, you know, the other duties as assigned that you find in job descriptions with the university. We've really been utilizing that. And I think most university units have been, but we've had Molly and Dustin and Julie and Tien and even me from time to time out in the gardens doing what we can to help with a busy spring, especially when there wasn't, you know, some of the events were down, the hotel was closed and things like that. And so I'm really gracious to all my staff. They don't even ask or, you know, why, they just go out and they do it. We were able to move the plant sale. You know, we usually do a plant sale. I think this is the 5th year, and we were able to move that to Country Arbors Nursery this year to help with the to help do the plant sale in a COVID environment. So it was more of a drop off or a curbside pickup for plants. And we got in a little, I'll admit it, we were a little over our heads with that whole situation. But I was able to call on all the staff and say, you know, like, we need help finding these plants, putting these orders together, and then getting them in people's cars so that, you know, we can keep things moving. And the staff all, you know, showed up at Country Arbors, and it was difficult because, you know, we had to keep spaced out and masks and everything, and made it really difficult. But I'm lucky to have the staff I do. Very lucky to have the staff I do. Bridget, do you have anything to add? I want to thank Bridget for doing the PowerPoint presentation. After last year, she said, I'll never do it. Oh, Derek, you'll never do a PowerPoint presentation again. I thought it was good. I mean, you know, there are only,
I didn't say that, but.
only 3 or 4 misspelled words on mine. So anyway.
No, thanks for being here, everyone. And we did record this, so we will have that posted for anyone who wasn't able to make it. But yeah, thank you for taking the time to be here tonight and work with us through this weird Zoom time.
That's true. These Zoom meetings, once you get used to them, they're not, no, that's a lie. They're always awful. Like, it's just a weird situation of watching yourself talk and trying to, yeah, not do that. So anyway, final questions. Anybody got anything else? Okay, well, like I said, we miss all of you very much. We look forward to the day we can, you know, take a walk, grab a cup of coffee at the Greenhouse Cafe, go to an Allerton concert out in the meadow or on the Gatehouse lawn. Until then, stay connected, reach out if you need us. If you say, man, I'm stuck at home, especially with fall and winter coming up, I think we're going to be back inside more. If you need that fix of X, you know, I want to see the Sun Singer, I want to see the Centaur, reach out and ask, and we'd be happy to send you a photo or, you know, direct you to a video online or something. And Mark Golden says, Chris Golden really likes the Creek Cam. If you haven't looked at the Creek Cam, that's all Alex Lorash, and it's really good. Really, really good. So check it out. Okay, with that, I hope you all have a great night. Thank you for being all in for Allerton. We appreciate it so much. So take good care.
Bye.
Bye.